This week's scenario is the Pit from the Steamroller 2016 packet. This scenario does have the Killbox Artifice in effect and consists of a 12-inch zone, which can be controlled for 1 CP or dominated for 2 CPs. The friendly flag can be dominated for 1 CP, and the enemy flag can be controlled for 1 CP or dominated for 2 CPs. Victory conditions consist of 5 control points or caster assassination.
Hello. This week I brought Pirate Queen Skarre. What I did was basically take a Mark II list, make some minor adjustments to make sure it was Mark III compatible, and then throw it out in Mark III. What I really wanted to see was how the loss of Weapon Master affected Bane Knights. Their damage output was a bear in Mark II, and I'm expecting it to go down a little bit in Mark III because of the change.
Alright, today we're going to use Xekaar with the Crash of Rhinodons. Now, you may be looking at this number here and thinking, well, that looks like more than 6. Well, you're right, it is more than 6. It is, in fact, 8 Rhinodons. Now, I will put out there, they're not all mine. I did have to borrow, but I have 8 Rhinodons.
For deployment with the Cryx army, I start by putting down Skarre with the Jax relatively close to the center, and then it's basically Bane Knights go wherever they can fit. The strategy that I'm going to use is basically run forward with a slug of dudes. If I get the Reaper a chance to pull something in, that's icing for the cake. But mainly it's to make sure enough guys survive so that Skarre uses her feet, and I will go after my opposing caster. Back in Mark II, Rhydons would have probably been afraid of the Bane Knights because they had Weapon Master, but with the loss of Weapon Master, I think the damage output is going to be down on Bane Knights.
Alright, deployment is going to be pretty easy because, well, it's just, my caster and a bunch of Rhinodons. There was talk a while ago about using Xekaar with a herd of Titans. I thought it was kind of interesting, but because of my love for the Rhinodon, we went ahead and figured out if we'd try this one instead. So it's pretty centrally located. He doesn't have a huge control range, so it's pretty much just about getting everything central into the middle of the board. Hopefully, we can do some damage to all that infantry.
Cryx turn 1. Alright, so simple turn. Run everything forward. Before I run everything forward, perhaps I'll move my Jax. I'm afraid that if the Jax were to go second, they'd get boxed in by all of the massive Bane Knights. So I make sure everyone gets out of the way of the Bane Knights, including Skarre. Or at least I'm going to make sure I leave Skarre a path. Then I run Bane Knights forward, starting with the Bane Knights on the left flank, followed by Bane Knights on the right flank. One thing I do have to be careful is now the Rhinodons have Thresher, so I need to make sure that I don't put every single Bane Knight in the exact, in a close quarters situation yet, because the Thresher is going to start wrecking Bane Knights left and right, and I need these guys to survive. So once I move up Skarre, I'm thinking I'm going to keep her there until probably turn 3. And that's what I'm thinking of using for my feet, just as my opponent advances.
Okay, to continue on with talking about the list, like I said, there was, on the forums, I believe there was some discussion about using Xekaar with a bunch of Titans. Figured that he'd be a pretty decent Titan caster, kind of similar to Resheth in Mark II. But that list never kind of hit the table for me, anyways. So we kind of, well, I say we, I mean me, me and the rest of the AM group sat down and started talking about it and realized that, well, I like Rhinodons. and Xekaar might be good with Rhinodons, but I only have 6. So Fort actually had 2, and he's like, well, I got 2, why don't we just make it a full 8? So we did, and this is the list that we have on the table right now. It's lacking some stuff, but I think it's going to be pretty good against infantry, as long as I can get them to the infantry. I think that my threat and Iron Lich's threat are about the same, except for he has the Reaper, which can drag my guys in.
Cryx turn 2. So my opponent is just going to throw a wall of meat at me, which, I mean, I kind of expected this. But I'm still somewhat afraid, because even on the charge, Bane Knights are slightly less effective. But I haven't charged anything yet, so that is yet to be proven. So, I figure, now's the chance to use my jacks. I'm just going to try and drag one of the Rhydons up with the Reaper. Since my opponent didn't use Spiny Growth, I actually have a chance to damage one of his Rhinodons. And then the Defiler is just going to spray something at random. So after I figure out my focus allocations, I begin thinking about placement of the Defiler. I could go after and hit a couple beasts. I could go after some of the Paingivers. But in the end, I feel basically, what the heck. Just advance them, spray Xekaar, boost a hit. I mean, that's all I really care about. And miss them. Well, I miss the Rhinodon. No, sorry, get that wrong. I missed Xekaar, but I hit... No, sorry. I hit a Paingiver, but I missed Xekaar. So I kill a random Paingiver. Fine with that. I move up the Reaper to edge of his harpoon range, and I just shoot one of the random Rhydons who's not on a hill, because elevation would foil those plans. Boost the damage. I end up damaging a Rhydon, pull him in. And then the Reaper proceeds to not kill him, because he's a Reaper. So with most games, I eventually do learn lessons, even after years of playing and occasionally not reading the rulebook or the card. And here is today's lesson, or this game's lesson. What I just did there with the Stalker was completely incorrect. So don't do it at tournaments, or else you could get disqualified. What I did wrong was I leaped after I made his attacks, which you can't do. You can only leap after you advance and before your action. So I make note of that to try and not do it again. But I think I ended up doing it one more time this game. I will let you know as we get further along. After which I start spreading out the first Bane Knight units. Now the Bane Knights, these are the first 2 Bane Knight charges I did, and they actually killed the Rhydon, but he was damaged by the Reaper. So I'm, at this point, instead of advancing, or I'm slightly advancing, not the full distance, because I'm still cognizant of my opponent's threat, given that Rhydons have reach. So I spread out to make sure that I'm not giving my opponent more than 3 Bane Knights. Like, I really don't want to give them more than 1 Bane Knight at a time. But in order to get them up the field, you have to advance, and you have to risk them. So as I estimate where my opponent is and where I want Skarre on turn 3, I only move her just a couple inches up. And then I go ahead and shoot a Hellfire through the Arc Node and get rid of another Paingiver. I figure my opponent's going to need Paingivers on this for this army to really work, so those guys are a high priority target.
Alright, well, that was kind of expected. I lost only 1 Rhinodon, which was good. I was really hoping there for a second that I was going to be able to keep it, but those Bane Knights came in and pretty much dashed all those hopes. So the downside is that Iron Lich can continue to do that each turn unless I can figure a way to locking him down or engaging my guys so I can't get dragged anywhere. So I'm going to start with the Beast Handlers at the top. They're going to come in base to base for prodding, and then they're going to enrage the Rhinodons that are up there. So prodding, as you all know, free charges for the beasts that are base to base with, and enraging gives them +2 to their damage rolls or +2 strength. So I'm starting with the first Rhinodon right there in the middle. It charges in on the bone chicken there, and pretty much I just got to make sure I contact with it. So I boost it to hit, and I do some pretty decent damage, as you can see right here, because he's going to mark off quite a few boxes, which is going to be really nice. And then I think with my second, with one of the fists, I end up taking it out. And then with my other fist, I end up swinging on the Bane Knight. But I don't think I connect. So I spend 2 to put up his Animus of Spiny Growth. Because, well, there's a bunch of guys with pointy sticks getting ready to come in at me. So I don't want them to have an easy time at taking him out. So now I have the next Rhydon advance, who has not been prodded, not been enraged, but he is going to advance and Thresher, because he was able to get all 3 of the models in the Thresher range. So he's he missed the first one, and he's going to boost in the second one, the one that's in the middle there, and then I think he ends up missing the last one in the group. And then he puts up his Animus of Spiny Growth as well. As with them being the 2 frontmost Rhinodons, it just made sense to have them put up their Animus, because they just kind of they're gonna get hit, and I'm hoping I can get them to survive, or just take a huge amount of damage from the Banes before they can actually take them down. Make a nice little U shape for the next Rhinodon to run in and hopefully Thresher on them. Now I activate my caster, and I'm trying to figure out if there's a way for me to get some kind of helping hand out there for my Rhinodon. But instead I'm going to activate the blue beast handlers. I'm sorry, I've already activated the white ones. And they're going to help condition. And there's one that's actually going to enrage the one that's in front of my caster. So now it's the plan here is to take that one that's in front of my caster and actually have him charge in on the Reaper and take out the Reaper. That is the hope. The hope is that it can do that. But I'm not oh, no, I'm sorry. He's actually just going to move in and swing on the one Bane. Because I want to try to get further in the nook with the other Rhinodon once he comes up and ends up casting a spell on the Reaper. But first of all, he maltreats the far Rhinodon at the furthest one to the bottom of the screen. To pull back another point of fury because he figures he's going to need it. And then I end up getting that, I do get that spell off as needed. And And so now my caster is now towing the zone, as it were. I'm not sure that's a smart choice, and I'm thinking as long as I can get the the Reaper to die, my caster should be relatively safe. So that is what I ended up doing, and I ended up casting Mortality on the onto the Reaper. And this is where I just kind of unload everything onto that Reaper. But I think I still end up falling short of killing it, so I take the last Rhinodon and run him in to block the path to my caster. Oh, and I also popped feet.
Cryx turn 3. Alright, so my opponent gave me Vengeance on 2 units, which was nice of him. So I start by, the Vengeance moves on the far side. But now that my opponent has started to put up Spiny Growth, the armor in his Rhydons has gone somewhat on the high side, considering that Bane Knights are only POW 12 with their melee deck, which is not Weapon Master. So it does become rather hard, because the modifier to the dice is like -7 or 8. I can't think off the top of my head what the armor on the Rhydon went up to, but if the Bane Knights weren't charging, they were not putting any kind of meaningful damage into a Rhinodon. So I do end up doing a lot of hemming and hawing on this turn. Mainly on that my opponent hasn't really moved up his caster, and given the position of my Bane Knights, I don't feel I'm able to get a lot of the Rhinodons, because if I pop feet, I need to be able to remove at least 3 beasts from the table, and I'm not sure that I was going to be able to do much more than 3, because he was going to have, my opponent didn't necessarily give me a whole lot of charge lanes, and I may have blocked myself in with some of my infantry placement. So even with the Vengeance, where I kind of trap myself is I give Skarre the opportunity to advance because of where I put my Bane Knights with Vengeance. But trying to make the best of a good situation. The Reaper, which was still pretty badly damaged from the one Rhinodon, I just decided that he was just going to pound on one Rhydon that was in his face. And then from there on out, figuring if I would be able to get anyone on Xekaar. Now, I really want to take a run. And I know one of my tendencies is to discover one of those high risk, low reward assassination runs where if the Rube Goldberg of items goes correctly, I will be able to get the assassination off. So I'm trying to cool my jets a bit and not go for the insane assassination attempt when I don't need to. What I need to do is just keep Skarre back, keep her near the flag, and try and go in scenario. Let my opponent shoot through my army to come to me. So I do that, I move Skarne base to base flag, I throw up Dark Guidance, because apparently Bane Knights can still miss quite a lot of stuff. Then I just go to work on my opponent's army. Starting with the mass of Rhydon that's in the middle. Now, if a Rhydon didn't have Spiny Girth on it, he became the opportune target, which was only one of them. The one that charged the Reaper initially didn't have Spiny Girth on him. So then I move up Tartarus, so I get Dark Shroud out there and drop his armor by 2. Now I'll try to make the stars align, so I can start killing some beasts with minimum risk to my own stuff. Then I bring in the Stalker, because I don't want this guy healing any. Stalker does almost nothing for me. I can tell his second swing, then he actually does pretty well. And then I make the mistake of moving him again after he attacks. And at this point, I think is when I caught his card that says that, you know, that helped me actually correct his how you do the leaping. So from here on out, there's no more leaping errors, as well as the games that followed it. And I tried putting him back in place where he was. Then I activate the Bane Knights. That's on the left flank. This whole turn, these guys are also under my opponent's feet, which was pretty crippling for me. And one thing I don't always like to do is counter feet, because I feel like if I'm not using my feet for offense, then... or if I'm using Skar's feet for defense, the armor only, then I'm kind of, you know, wasting on the strength part. And the Bane Knights, I believe their mat was affected. I can't remember Xekaar's feet off the top of my head, and I don't have Skorne cards on me. So that kind of influenced my decision to wait one more turn. My opponent couldn't kill enough Bane Knights for Skar's feet to be pointless next turn. So I just positioned the Bane Knights to where my opponent couldn't really do anything without taking free strikes. Then I wanted to set up for the next turn, because the next turn everything's basically in place where I need it. All the Bane Knights, regardless of where they are now, we're going to have a good charge lane to something. And I wanted to further increase that. At that point, the Bane Knight was on the far right flank. Those guys were getting my opponent's backfield, start messing with those Paingivers. So my opponent would have little fury management and little buffage. And I want to make sure that I put Bane Knights everywhere, trying to be cognizant of not putting them next to each other. So I put one on my opponent's flag, and I couldn't score because my opponent was contesting it. I got threat ranges up the wazoo at this point, which is pretty good. It's solid. It's what I want. And then I'm preparing to go in on the kill for a damaged Rhinodon that's in my Reaper's face still. So after the Bane Knights on the far right flank finish their attacks, they get lucky and actually do some damage. Some. And then go ahead and move Darragh Wrathe out of the way, doing Beyond Death. Activate the rear unit of Bane Knights and send these guys in. However, it's kind of a catch-22 at this point. In order to get enough Bane Knights onto a Rhinodon, you kind of have to put them all kind of close together, like I'm doing right now. So, do a good job of encircling this Rhinodon, putting at least 4 Knights on him. And these Knights actually do some damage to him. Of course, then he's also got Dark Shroud from Tartarus. But these essentially the short of what I'm saying is Bane Knights killed the Rhinodon. However, I realized the problem afterwards. See, where that Rhinodon was standing, left a perfectly good gap for another Rhinodon to come in and thresh her. Nothing I can do about it, catch 22. If I want to kill a Rhydon, I gotta put them all around him.
Okay, with my feet up, I fared a lot better than I thought I was going to. I only ended up losing one more Rhinodon, mostly due to dice rolls, I believe. But yeah. So I was able to weather through. Iron Lich, is up on me now on control points because he just has that swarm of knights that just come in. and it's like, ugh, it's just horrible. So right there, I had too much fear on the table because I was anticipating more casualties. So the one Rhinodon ended up failing his threshold check and frenzied into his buddy next to him. And so now we're, going through the rest of my, pre-phases. And I have a plan. As most times, my plans tend to be Hail Mary plans. They really are the, this is probably not going to be smart. This is probably not going to work. But I'm going to give it a try. And my plan that I'm trying to work out is if I can figure out a way to free up a couple of those Rhinodons that are closest to his caster, maybe I could go for the caster kill. But that all depends upon my dice rolls. So to start off with, I know I need to free up some people. So we start with the one Rhinodon who is kind of going to be easiest to deal with, for what he's going to do for his turn. And have him just Thresher. I had him turned just right because he no longer have the 360 Thresher. So he turned just so he didn't hit any of these people, but then I had him to where he ended up, swinging on all the other Bane Knights. And it's trying to figure out who do I boost on, who do I not boost on, yada yada yada. And the ones I was actually able to hit, I was rolled well enough to hit, I actually ended up killing. So now it's the next Rhydon, who is, once again, it's all about trying to free up some Rhinodons, because the plan is to get in on his caster. Worst case scenario, if I can't kill his caster, at least ways, hopefully get him to divert his attention over to defending his caster. Because hopefully by the end of the turn, wherever it is, however it's going to work out, I should be able to have my caster in a fairly good position and make it to where his caster is going to be surrounded by, at least have a couple Rhinodons on him to where he will, have to deal with them or potentially, lose the game. Worst case, it'll at least stop him from scoring. But once again, I still have to figure out how am I going to get the Rhinodons from where they're standing to be more of a threat to his caster. And so that's why we now have the I was measuring out for my caster, where can he go? What's going to be the best option? And whatnot. So we're just playing around now because I'm just measuring. Pre-measuring says I can measure anything I want to, so I was measuring his side of the table. Because, well, why not? It's funny. I will tell you, this list has actually been a load of fun to play, win or lose. I really do enjoy the way that Rhinodons play, especially if you can get them into an infantry heavy list, because their 2-inch Thresher is really great, I think, and with a bunch of the fixes they've made to the Rhinodon, with the increase to the mat, and then the new Animus was kind of different, but I still thought it was okay. But yeah, overall, I think that the Rhinodons are in a good spot for what they do. I think they're pretty close to being the right point cost. But back to the game. So I moved the beast handlers up, hoping to block off both my caster and kill the one the one guy. So I unfortunately was not able to kill him. So he gave a free strike to my one Rhydon that's moving up into the hole where you see the marker, and then he threshered because, well, you know, I need those Banes to be gone. Don't remember how it happened, but somehow or another I ended up knocking down the Reaper. Or maybe that was, no, I'm sorry, maybe that was one of the other guys that was knocked down, not the Reaper. Alright, so now, here we go. Battle plan. In effect. I have his caster lined up. I enrage, because that's something he can do. I then maltreat one of the other Rhinodon so I can get the extra point of fury. I then attempt to cast Mortality on his caster, which I get. Hooray for good dice rolls in this turn. And so now I just measure my control range, making sure that regardless of where the Rhinodon can go, if I can get him clear, that he is going to be able to make it to his caster and be in control range. So I end up casting another spell at the one unengaged Bane Knight right there. It ends up being, I think I end up casting Dead Weight because that's my only actual offensive spell. And I was able to hit it. I don't know how that worked, but I was able to hit it, kill it, and move forward with the other Rhinodon. And then, once again, Thresher Mania. He moves forward, he threshers. Now I ended up boosting on the one that's right in front of the Rhinodon because that's the one I knew I needed to die. And then, pretty much any other damage that I could do to everybody else, I was able to just place just out of range of threshing on my own guy. So now I measured the 1 inch, so because the Rhinodon has 1 inch on his hands. So I spent the time, I moved the base up there, measured it, and just kept, swung for the fences. He's enraged. He charged it for free. I boosted his tail attack on Skarre. I then boosted one of my fists. I was able to hit, do some more damage, and then by the end of it, I was able to finish her off. Good game.
Afterthoughts. Was an interesting game. The damage I put the Bane Knights did go down as I was thinking it would. But I guess where it was really noticeable for me were on non-charge attacks. To where they didn't get that extra 2. It just seemed like they really struggled with taking out armor, and I didn't want to use Skarre's feet trivially, although the manner in which I died, I didn't get to use Skarre's feet at all. But Bane Knights felt a little lacking, given how many points it takes to take a single unit, let alone 3. Then my opponent, man, he couldn't not roll a crit knockdown. I mean, I'm pretty sure he would have gotten a crit knockdown on 1 die somehow. Like 1 die, crit knockdown. 2 dice, crit knockdown. Crit knockdown here, crit knockdown there, crit down knock everywhere. I don't know, it just felt like everything wound up on its butt that was in my army. And normally I would have had like a Satixis captain in the list, but I think when I was switching around my Mark II list to Mark III, I couldn't find the points to put her in there. I mean, I definitely needed Darragh Wrathe in there, for the movement boost as well as the armor boost for the army. Needed Tartarus. All the jacks I had to take because jack points. I mean, there weren't a whole lot of other options to keep the Raider Captain in there to prevent such things as being knocked down. But yeah, that's all I can say about that. I can't fabricate points out of midair. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, fun game, and it definitely shows how Cryx has to kind of evolve, going from Mark II to Mark III still. And then when the 2017 Steamroller comes out, that's also gonna be interesting to see how Cryx lists in general have to continue to morph and evolve in order to stay competitive in terms of scenario. Me generally, I like to skew my lists, whether it's infantry heavy or jack heavy. It just feels like whenever I try and create a balanced list that it loses its components a lot faster. So that's just list building evolution for me personally. But we'll continue to try and put together lists, and eventually I'll figure out something that works. Well, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.